All right, guys, let's talk about this profit and loss statement. This is specifically for photographers. If you are not a photographer, reach out to me at my website and we can talk. My name is Daniel. I am a bookkeeper for photographers, and essentially what you're seeing here is not what I use. I use QuickBooks. You will see sort of just how much work goes into doing your own Excel sheets. So if you are at a place where you're ready to have a bookkeeper manage your QuickBooks, reach out to me before you get started, because it's real easy to mess up and then it just takes more money and time to fix later. But this is specifically for people who are interested in sort of managing their own books. You're new to the photography world. You maybe are a year or two in, and so you still have some time to manage this for yourself. Once things start ramping up, you will see it just becomes way too much of a hassle, and it's not worth the small cost of having a bookkeeper do it for you. And so reach out when you're ready for that. So let's walk through this list together. Essentially what you're doing here is you're creating this thing called a profit and loss statement. This is going to be handed, this right here, this piece of paper will be handed to your tax professional at the end of the year. And I will say up front, this is for LLCs, this is for sole proprietors. So if you are just getting started and you maybe have a W-2 job, you are still going to be paying taxes in April on your business expense, of course. And what you're going to be doing is filing a Schedule C attached to your personal income tax statement. So just a heads up, this is for sole proprietors and LLCs, not S corps. If you're an S corp, you probably are already using QuickBooks because of the taxes involved. So let's get into it. So this is what you're creating here, and at the end of the year, what the tax person really cares about is this number right here, which right now is 0. So let's get into these different tabs. So the README is of course there, read that, check out the video again if you need help. Here's the lists. You are not going to be messing with this, it's not pretty, just ignore it. We need this here to impact the rest of the Excel sheet. And now let's get into income and see how this starts fixing stuff. So let's say on July 15th, 2026, you had a client named Bill and Melinda, and they were an 8-hour wedding, and the income category of course is wedding, and the description doesn't matter too much, like it's not necessary, but it's helpful for you as a business owner. Let's say they paid check and the status is paid, and let's say they paid $5,000 and you traveled 50 miles to get to, you know what, let's be precise, you traveled 52.8 miles to get to their house or wherever they got married, right? So let's say they got married, they got ready at their house and then married at a golf course. That took 52 miles out of your day to do that. And then let's say over on 08 28 2026, we had Jessica and Benjamin, and it was a 6-hour wedding. And I'm just gonna put right here, wedding, and they paid check. You know what, let's mess it, they paid Venmo, why not? And they did pay, and the amount was to, let's say 6 hours, let's say $4,000. And we traveled 75.2 miles on that day. And you get the idea, you're just gonna keep going. Once you get to December 31st, 2026, you stop, you finish, you print out the sheet, you hand it to your tax expert. And then you would download a brand new one and get started for next year. So it's going to be a completely new Excel sheet for the following year. This is only 1 year at a time, right? So that's our income. Now, if we head over to the profit and loss statement, your income in weddings is $9,000. I think you'd get the idea. If you did some families, let's just do it for fun. Let's just say you did a family session, you did some real estate photos, and they all paid you in like Zelle and Square, whatever, and they paid 500, and then 250. You traveled 100 miles and then 125 miles, because why not? And then you get the idea how to fill in this data. I just want to show you what that looks like on the profit and loss again. So you have your family and your real estate has all contributed to your total income of $9,000. Now we'll get into taxes here in just a little bit, but there's your income for the fall, right? your expenses. Now this gets a little tricky. So let's say on August 10th, 2026, you paid Amazon or B&H for a new camera, right? Okay, cool. I dropped, $5,000. If I go to my expenses, I'm like, okay, there's equipment and gear. Yeah, there's gear rental, there's software. Okay, cool. So obviously you're choosing equipment and gear, and the payment method, I'll just say I paid credit card, and is this tax deductible? Yes, of course. And the amount we'll say is $5,000, right? Now you have two options here. When you have something over $5,000, you can head over to the gear and asset expense tracker, and you can complete it here if you want to. You can also just leave it here, but just know that if I put all of this over in the gear and assets, this is just going to show me the depreciation. So for example, on August 10th, B&H, so 08/10/2026, I have camera. The amount was $5,000. That year, you get to expense $1,000 if you want to depreciate your asset. Meaning, depreciation is essentially like if you don't want to experience the total $5,000 decrease that year, you can just subtract $1,000 as an expense, which actually is helpful. So let's say you want to go buy a house, and on your profit and loss statement for the last 2 years, you showed $0 because everything got expensed. You are not a profitable business, and the bank is not going to give you a loan. So this is just here for people who are like knowing that you're going to be like, this is like your actual business, and you know that this is meaningful in terms of like bank loans and your personal income. Because banks will see this at the end of the year, and if it matches your taxes, they're going to verify it and corroborate it and make sure that it's legit. And then they're going to give you a loan for a house because you actually produced a business, right? Business income. If it shows zeros, you're just a hobby, and you aren't, you're not a serious business. And so that's just here for people who are like, I'd rather just depreciate so that way I show a profit at the end of the year. And essentially every year for 5 years, you get to depreciate $1,000 until you've absorbed all that expense. And now, the asset's worth, well, it's still worth something too. You can still sell it, but you don't actually get to expense it anymore. Or you could just expense it all up front on your expense sheet. And if we head over to the profit and loss, you'll see total expenses was $5,000, so your net profit is just subtracted from your total income. And let's say we throw in a few more expenses. So 08/11/2026. And let's say if you have any questions about that, reach out to me and I can explain it to you further. Let's say we went on Amazon, and this was cards, like memory cards. This is going to be, you could do two things, equipment and gear, or you could do an office supply because it's such a small purchase. I do equipment and gear because I like to depreciate my personal assets, and so, or my business assets. So this is tax deductible, of course, and this is going to be for $200, right? All right, cool. So again, we head over to the profit and loss statement, and you will see that has added up our equipment and gear for a total here. Now, you will just, for the rest of the year, you're just going to keep putting stuff in. Let's say that in November, you went to, you traveled, right? You went to, Cancun for an elopement or something. So what are you going to pay here? Well, you're going to pay your receipts. So let's say you stayed at the Marriott in Cancun. I don't even know how you spell Cancun. Never been there. I think it's a U. And then your description would be hotel. And so your expense category is going to be travel. And you paid on the credit card. And this is tax deductible. And let's say you spent $500 on a hotel in Cancun because you went down for an elopement. And let's head over, and bam, there's our travel mileage. Now, or travel/mileage, right? Mileage doesn't really matter here so much because if you head over to miles, you will see this year we've traveled 353 miles on my vehicle. So this is per vehicle. If you want to add a second vehicle, you just copy this over and you can add another vehicle here. But just know that whenever you're adding your income, you're tracking your miles here, at the end of the year, you will have a total, and then that total your tax person can multiply to give you one fat expense. This is ultra helpful, way more helpful than lots. This is actually way easier than QuickBooks in my opinion. And I personally track my miles through QuickBooks, but that's because I have like a whole system and stuff. But this is really easy and fast. So anyways, hopefully it's helpful. Now, at the end of the year, if you're like, it's July, and I'm like, how much money am I actually going to owe in taxes? Well, you would take your net profit multiplied by 0.3, and that's going to be 1215. Now, this is just going to be your taxes on that quarter. So this is important to know. When you're paying estimated taxes, you're paying your estimated taxes, which everyone needs to be paying federal estimated taxes, even if you're a side hustle, sole proprietor. Otherwise, you can get slapped with a fat tax bill at the end of the year. And it's not because you're in trouble. It's because that's just how much people pay estimated taxes to avoid a fat tax bill at the end of the year. And so this is just on the quarter, and then at the end of the year you would pay in January other taxes on the last few months previous. So I'm not going to give you a tax column here just because it can get confusing and weird. But QuickBooks, I can tell you, makes it very simple. And QuickBooks ProAdvisor, like myself, can also make it super simple. And so if you're ever wanting to avoid a fat tax bill at the end of the year, reach out to me. My name is Daniel. I'm a bookkeeper for photographers. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. Head over to my TikTok, Instagram, and I'd love to engage with you there.